Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We will wait for 5-10 seconds until everybody has joined. I see the numbers are going up and we will get started. Welcome, everybody. I think we are ready. Let's get started. Probably a few more participants will be joining over the next 1 or 2 minutes. We have over 150 participants registered. Thank you very much for being here. My pleasure to introduce this webinar that will launch the report on a territorial approach to the SDGs in Kópavogur in Iceland. This is the first of a series of reports that we will be launching over the coming few weeks, and I'm really delighted to welcome you all. Maybe, and even if by now everybody should be zoomed out, a few housekeeping arrangements before we get started. We are in a webinar format. You will all be seeing the speakers live when they take the floor. We encourage you to share your questions through the Q&A, if possible, icon that you have at the bottom of the ribbon so that we can have a pipeline of questions and reactions and make sure that the last 20 minutes of this hour long webinar can address them with the different speakers. And if some of you wish on that occasion to take the floor live, just raise your hand, signal yourself, and the team here will upgrade your status so that you can lively intervene if you prefer not to do it via the Q&A. You have on the screen some background information and the hashtag on Twitter, the account, if you wish to communicate and disseminate some of the quotes or messages that will come out of the session. You also have, if we go back to the previous slide, the link to the report that was launched a few months ago now, a territorial approach to the SDGs. Here you go at the bottom left of the slide, where we have developed this analytical framework for going local with the SDGs, and where we have also produced a major data set that measures the distance of 600 cities, 600 regions from the SDGs where we believe they have core prerogatives. This applies to mostly OECD economies, but a few emerging and partner countries also feature in that data set, and that cuts across all SDGs, not only SDG 11 that is devoted to cities and communities. So I really encourage all of you to get access to the report, to the data set, and to the online tool if you wish to know more about this piece of work, in addition to the specific case of Kpavogur that we will be disclosing today. We'll have a first set of interventions from different speakers representing the different stakeholders that were involved in this year-and-a-half long policy dialogue. And then we'll have a more technical presentation of some of the key findings that will definitely not do justice to the magnitude of the work, but that I hope will be a teaser for you to access the report and get to know more about this beautiful experience of Kpavogur in localizing the SDGs. With no further ado, I would like now to invite our first speaker, Lamia Kamal-Shawi. Lamia is the director of the OECD Center for Entrepreneurship, SMEs, Regions and Cities. Lamia is the mastermind behind this big program on a territorial approach to the SDGs. And I would like to invite Lamia for some opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Aziza. Dear Mayor, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really delighted to be here today to introduce our new report on a territorial approach to the SDG in Kópavogur, Iceland. This report is part of a series of 9 case studies in cities and regions, which fits in our broader program, a territorial approach to the SDGs, that was launched at the 2018 High-Level Political Forum on SDGs in New York. the goal of this program is to support cities and regions to develop, implement, and monitor strategies to deliver on all SDGs. So I would like to thank warmly Mayor Olafsson and his team for working with us on this very important project. I'd like also to acknowledge the involvement of Ms. Hanna-Dora Holm Mastodier, Senior Advisor at the Ministry of Regional Policy, Transport and Local Government, and Delegate of Iceland to the OECD Regional Development Policy Committee, as well as Ms. Asta Bian Adotir, Specialist for the Interministerial Working Group on the SDGs from the Prime Minister's Office of Iceland. Thank you all for joining us today. Actually, Kpavogur is a great place to live. The city has been attracting a lot of people in the last 20 years to become the second most populated municipality in Iceland. And Kpavogur has also been expanding as an attractive business location with large companies and commercial banks based there. So unemployment is at a low 2.6%. Many cities in the world would like to display such a level of unemployment level. So Kpavogur performs really well on many of the SDGs, actually above OECD averages. This is true for the SDGs on health, well-being, decent work, economic growth, education, but also severe poverty, which is actually close to zero, and air quality. These are phenomenal achievements, especially when we know that 70% of cities in OECD countries have not achieved the goals for 2030 in 15 of the 17 SDGs. This being said, some sustainable development challenges still need to be addressed, starting with reducing the levels of waste production, which are well above the OECD average and the related SDG target, addressing the lack of public transport in a city where nearly 80% of people use personal vehicles to commute to work is also key to maintaining high air quality and position the city strategically as part of the Reykjavik capital region. So to keep up with its achievement and to be even more ambitious, the city is using the SDGs to rethink its sustainable development policy from the ground up. The city formally adopted the SDGs as part of its comprehensive local strategy in 2018, making Kpavogur the first municipality in Iceland to formally adopt the SDGs. The city's local strategy prioritized 15 of the 70 SDGs and 36 targets based on the 65 priorities chosen by the Icelandic national government. It used a data-driven approach to implementing its strategy and localizing the SDGs, including through local dashboards, indices, and local indicator datasets, building on the Social Progress Index, ISO certification for data quality on sustainable community development, and UNICEF's child-friendly city dashboard. All this is wrapped up in an impressive tracking system that encourages holistic as opposed to sector-based planning. The city should really be praised by instituting a participatory and multi-stakeholder process to implement its strategy. Actually, Kpavogur is using the SDG to build awareness and strengthen ownership of the local strategy among the private sector and civil society, including via a survey and online portals for public consultation. So the OECD has been really proud to work with such a successful example as Kpavogur. And here I must congratulate you, Mayor Olafsson, for your city's impressive performance. To help your city get a snapshot of its performance in a more international context, we made use of our new innovative OECD localized framework of 135 indicators to show where Kpavogur stands vis-à-vis the SDGs as compared to over 600 other cities in OECD countries. Everything is available online. You can have a look. And actually, Stefano Marta, the main author of the report, will present you the result visually later. Working with over 100 stakeholders and policymakers from Kópavogur and the Icelandic national government, we also use our OECD checklist for public action to implement a territorial approach to the SDGs, to develop a set of tailored policy recommendations and ensure a multi-level approach to the SDGs. In the report we are launching today, we suggest many things, but we suggest in particular creating a task force at the national level to strengthen vertical coordination of the SDGs. So the participation in this event of the Ministry of Regional Policy, Transport and Local Government and the Ministerial Working Group on the SDG is really a promising step in that direction. So Mayor, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, in today's highly uncertainty environment, the SDGs are even more relevant than ever. They offer a clear and stable framework to guide cities and regions in shaping a transformative recovery from COVID-19. As has happened here in Kópavogur, all levels of governments need to share responsibility for building a more sustainable and resilient society, and this is something that you are doing in Iceland. Kópavogur has blazed a trail, and the OECD stands ready to work with other cities and regions to continue this work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lamia, for introducing some of the highlights of this work and making a bridge to the mayor. I will hand over now the floor to Mayor Arman Olafsson. Maybe we will stop sharing the slide, Stefano, while the mayor and the next two speakers take the floor so that everybody can see them in full screen. Mayor, thank you very much for your dedication and leadership, and you have the floor for your opening remarks.
Yes, nice to see you, and thank you very much, Lamia, for your encouraging comments for Kópavogur. It's very good to hear that you are pretty happy with our municipality. But first of all, I would like to thank the OECD for organizing this event and giving me the opportunity to share with you some of our experiences. In Kópavogur, SDGs are a part of our comprehensive strategy with the aim of ensuring the quality of life of our residents and joining in the global effort towards sustainability. The strategy consists of a mission statement, vision and values, plus our 36 primary goals that are prioritized from 15 SDGs and the related 169 SDGs targets. We are in the final stages of our first round of the related strategic planning process, as we are working on implementing them into next year projects and the budgeting process, which can be a little bit complicated according to reduction in income because of COVID-19. But we are also in the final stages of deciding on the composition of our SDGs index to measure our progress of the implementation of the SDGs in Kópavogur. This work is based on the methods developed by the OECD and reported in the synthesis report that was launched in February 2020. The guidance and support of the OECD has increased vertical and lateral coordination and cooperation. We have enjoyed the goodwill of ministries and different institutions, companies and associations in Iceland that have joined us for workshops and meetings with the OECD team, and we have continued to show their interest in our work, and for that we are thankful. We have recently started a program with the marketing office of Kópavogur, which is a cooperation between Kópavogur and businesses in Kópavogur, to encourage them to start their journey on the implementation of the SDGs and work towards sustainability. And the companies signed a memorandum of understanding at the launch, and the marketing office has already become aware of further interest in the program. We have also experienced highly important interest in working with the SDGs on behalf of Kópavogur staff members, which has presented itself in the extensive work that has already been started within different institutions and divisions, and for that we are also grateful. Just to mention a few projects that are underway, the revision of the municipal plan to 2031 was done in accordance with the Kópavogur new strategy in its 36 priority SDGs targets. It included a materially assessment and involved a bottom-up participatory process where several SDGs workshops were held in diverse stakeholders, both internal and external. We are implementing the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. The elementary schools and preschools continue to be active, and one preschool recently added a few hens to their premises. And the culture houses and the Division of Education have recently been awarded in Icelandic, Nordic and European grants for the SDGs programs. We are aware that many of the findings of the OECD report are important for Kópavogur. We will strive to benefit from our data sets and our localized information system Nightingale when it comes to performance management and budgeting, plus measuring the progress towards the SDGs. We will develop further the use of our participatory data portals and processes. We are working towards integrating sustainability criteria in our public procurement, and we are hopeful that the regional reforms with respect to cleaner forms of urban mobility will be realized. Participating in the OECD territorial approach for the SDGs program has been valuable to us, especially with respect to the best practices and the peer-to-peer learning. I would like to thank OECD team led by Aziza, Stefano and the team for their excellent work on this program. I also want to thank all of our peers and participated in the pilot program for the cooperation, in particular from the county of Viken in Norway and from the Association of Flemish Cities and Municipalities in the region of Flanders, as they joined us for a workshop here in Kópavogur. We find the SDGs to be a valuable framework to build a more resilient, inclusive and sustainable society in the near future. And at last, I just say thank you to you all.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you for these words, and great thanks to your teams, very high professionals and dedicated colleagues who really took the advantage of using the SDGs as a means to rethink from the ground up, as you said, planning, strategic investment, budget allocation, and priorities in Kpavogur. And as Lamia was saying in the introduction, the window of opportunity with COVID-19 to accelerate the shift towards this new urban paradigm. Thank you very much, and to your team for the work. And it's now my pleasure to turn to the next speaker, Asta Bianadotir from the Interministerial Working Group on the SDGs, located in the Prime Minister's office in Iceland. Asta, thank you very much for your time. This has been a whole of government approach, a multi-level governance dialogue, and we're happy to hear from you on the outcomes of this dialogue and how this can guide decision-making in the future. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to take part in this webinar and to say a few words about the government's working group and the localization of the SDGs in Iceland. Now, just briefly on the working group, it was founded in 2017 and is led by the Prime Minister's office in close cooperation with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The group has expanded quite a bit since the early days and now has representatives from all ministries, along with a representative from the Icelandic Association of Local Authorities, Statistics Iceland, and the Parliament, and also observers from the UN Association in Iceland and our youth council that was formed around the SDGs. Now, the group's main role is to monitor the implementation of the SDGs in Iceland and to prepare Iceland's voluntary national reviews. It also aims to incorporate the SDGs into national frameworks, including the 5-year fiscal strategy, whilst also placing a strong emphasis on stakeholder engagement and awareness raising on the SDGs nationwide. Now, as a result of that and other supporting factors, people in Iceland are now generally aware of the SDGs, and our most recent poll shows that just short of 80% either know or have heard of the global goals, as they're called here in Iceland. Now, as we enter this decade of action during a global pandemic, sustainable development has never been more important or relevant. I truly believe it's the key to building back better for our future generation. But the SDGs will not be reached without full involvement of the local governments, as their core responsibilities are central to sustainable development. Now, up to this point, coordination between the local and national stakeholders here in Iceland has mainly taken place through the government's working group and the Forum for Climate and the SDGs that was created by the Association of Local Authorities last year. However, as recommended in this report, I am happy to say that we are now in the process of creating a task force at the national level to strengthen the vertical coordination of the SDGs here in Iceland. The task force will be comprised of representatives from the Ministry of Transport and Local Governments, the Icelandic Association of Local Authorities, Statistics Iceland, and the working group. One of its main tasks will be to secure data for a specific set of indicators for the municipalities. That will enable them to monitor their progress, which will help them to fully embrace the SDGs into their existing frameworks and future policies. And more importantly, securing better disaggregated data on the SDGs will also be a big step towards leaving no one behind, as it will further uncover our most vulnerable groups of people here in Iceland. The task force is also seen as an opportunity for local and regional government to coordinate their future stakeholder engagement and long-term policies on sustainable development. Lastly, I would like to congratulate Kópavogur on their tremendous work on mainstreaming the SDGs into their strategies and on their truly impressive Nightingale management and information system that they have built alongside that work. I believe that they will reap the benefits from this data-driven approach in the years to come as they continue their efforts to provide the people of Kópavogur with sustainable, accessible, and affordable services, leaving no one behind. I also applaud their willingness to share their efforts, thereby paving the way for other municipalities in Iceland and abroad. Sustainable development is a joint effort, and they have certainly pulled their weight. This report is an important milestone for the localization of the SDGs here in Iceland. The OECD has also provided the local governments with some clear guidelines on how to approach the SDGs, which I'm sure will prove to be very helpful for the work that lies ahead of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Asta, and also for showing how action was taken very quickly the day of the launch of the report in the creation, amongst other, of the task force, and trying to broaden the scope of the data investment in other municipalities in Iceland. This is really good piece of news. Congratulations and thank you for this. Let me, before I pass the floor to the last speaker for the opening remarks, remind you all that you have on the chat the links to the report, the online tool, and the broader strategic synthesis report on a territorial approach to the SDGs. Invite you all to use the Q&A to share questions. We already have three actually questions for the speakers, and I'll come back to them after the technical presentation, and also invite you to share live on Twitter and other social media. Our account is OECD _local, #SDGs, so that we keep the conversation going. It's my pleasure now to introduce Hanna Dora Om Mazdotir. Hanna is the Senior Advisor for Regional Development in the Ministry of Regional Policy, Transport and Local Government. She's also the delegate of Iceland in the OECD Regional Development Policy Committee that oversees that work on a territorial approach to the SDGs. And that's very important because this local pilot is a contribution to the OECD-wide action plan on SDGs, and the rationale for the Regional Development Policy Committee's work is actually to build that bridge between local and national level of government. So we're very delighted to have Hanna with us. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you. Hi, everyone, and it's very enjoyable to be with you here on this webinar today. And I look very much forward to Mr. Marta's presentation afterwards. I would like to begin with thanking OECD staff for the fruitful cooperation on this project and for giving our ministries and local government the exhortation and guidelines needed for the further implementation of the SDGs on local government level. I would then like to praise the town of Kópavogur for their advanced approach and excellent job in being the first municipality to address the implementation of the SDGs in a modern and holistic way. The Minister of Transport and the local government last fall put forward a parliamentary resolution on the implementation of a strategic plan for municipal affairs for the years 2019 to 33, sorry. And with it, the ministry shall at least every 3 years submit to Alþingi, our parliament, proposals for laying out the strategic policy for the municipalities in Iceland for the following 15 years, containing a 5-year action plan to make sure these goals are obtained. And it is based on the objectives of the law of the municipal authorities and the government's policy on sustainable development. And it is the government's international agreements, such as with the UN and the Nordic Council of Ministers. The main goals of this policy are twofold. Firstly, that local governments in Iceland should become a powerful and sustainable platform for democratic activities. And secondly, respect for local self-government and their responsibilities and ensuring equal rights and access for residents to services. The blue thread throughout the policy is how local governments can attain sustainability. The discussion following, both in the parliament and among stakeholders, is in general positive towards the resolution, but also calls after the clarity on how the government defines sustainability of the municipalities. And there the SDGs are a strong part. That task is now being worked on further in the ministry, mainly by looking into how other nations define this. Is it financial sustainability, demographic sustainability, employment sustainability, and so on and so forth. This needs to be explicit and clear in action, and by that ensuring a smooth implementation. There, the OECD's work and research on rural and regional development and help with the implementation of the SDGs in other countries is very relevant and of much use. We also see that the implementation of the SDGs will play a big role in further development of the regional plans of action. The plan started in 2015 and set out regional priorities in line with the Regional Development Programme in Iceland. The Regional Association of Local Authorities work with the municipalities in each of the region on forming the strategies in a consultative forum in each region. In such plans, indicators are of most importance, and there the SDGs indicators will certainly give guidelines on how the plans are performing. Our regional plan sets the aim that in all parts of the country there shall be flourishing settlements and robust centers of populations, which may contribute to the improved living standards of citizens with the most equal access possible to basic services, and employment opportunities irrespective of economic means and place of residence. To reach such measures, Iceland must take a leading part in further implementing and developing modern infrastructure, advanced services, value creation, equality of life, and diversity in robust regions, capable of undertaking local projects and providing residents with good and cost-effective services, all with the aim of the sustainability, and there the importance of successful implementation of the SDGs are of uttermost importance. As I said, I look forward to get the presentation here from Mr. Marta, and look forward to the fruitful discussions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hannah, and many thanks to those that have already asked a few questions. We'll get back to them. Probably I will direct the question on the major obstruction in achieving the SDGs to the mayor. Asta, there are a few questions for you on sex disaggregated data and how you've been prioritizing the SDGs as well. Keep those in mind. Start thinking about responses. We'll hear now from Stefano in 10-12 minutes some of the key findings of the report. We will share again the access to the Kpavogur report on the chat so that you can all click on it and have a look in parallel. Stefano, you have the floor, and then we'll devote the last 15 minutes to responding to these questions. And if you have more questions, because we have 100 participants almost online, please use the Q&A function so that we assign them to the different speakers. Stefano, you have the floor.
Thank you, Aziza. I will try to really be very short because some of the findings has been mentioned by Lami and by the mayor. So the report of Kópavogur is structured around and the findings about three main components. One is policy and strategy. One is on the indicator and the performance, good performance and some possible challenges of Kópavogur on achieving the SDGs. And the third big component is on governance and stakeholder engagement. As already mentioned, I think what in terms of strategy and policy, the adoption of the local strategy in 2018 is very important for Kópavogur, and also for in the way in which Kópavogur has selected the priority SDGs and the priority target. And I think it's really a very good example on how to align the national priority with the local priority. Because what the administration did is to start looking at the 65 priority identified by the national government, and then select also based on the UCLG suggestion on which are the target and the SDGs that are relevant for local and regional government. They selected the 36 priority target for the local administration. The approach that Kópavogur has been using is really data-driven because the municipality has a long tradition in terms of data and indicator, starting from a localized version of the Social Progress Index. Last year, the administration received the ISO certification for the quality of data on sustainable community. And in particular, what is really key is this Nightingale management and information system that is used both to measure progress on the SDGs, but also as a management tool in the local administration. As the mayor mentioned, Kópavogur is now completing a composite index to measure the progress on the SDGs. So what the Kópavogur is creating is a composite index for each of the 17 SDGs, and also a final composite index to measure progress on the three dimensions of sustainability. But what is also very important is that the system is connecting the SDGs to all the different performance of the different tasks of the administration, and also to the budgeting. So this becomes a tool to see how the different departments are contributing to the SDGs, and also the budget is the allocation of the budget contribute to the SDGs. That is really very interesting. The second part is on which are the strengths and some challenges that Kópavogur is still has to achieve the SDGs. And as mentioned by Lamia, Kópavogur is performing very well in most of the SDGs. It's performing better than the OECD average in most of the SDGs. Some of the main strengths are education, health, and gender equality. Without going into all the details, we can see, for example, that in terms of share of women elected to city level offices, the amount, the data for the percentage in Kópavogur is 54%. It is very high, and also because the gender goal is very challenging for most region and most city in OECD country. So that's a very good achievement for the city. And in terms of planet, although there are some very good performance, for example, in access to high quality water services, here is where we can find two areas of improvement for the municipality. One is the number of cars, the high number of cars. And we can see that almost 80% of the population is using a personal vehicle to commute to work in Kópavogur. And this is the number of cars is higher in Kópavogur than in 85% of the OECD regions. And the second important data where there is can be considered an area of improvement is the municipal waste rate that is quite higher than, again, the OECD average. In terms of prosperity, again, we can see very, very good performance in terms of low unemployment, air quality, where the Kpavogur is performing better. The air quality is better than the threshold of the WHO, and also what we impose as end value for this goal. And very important also, 100% of the energy consumption come from renewable resources. In terms of peace and prosperity, Kpavogur can be considered really as a safe place to live, because there was no homicide, no reported cases of corruption, and also in terms of partnership, an indicator that we use to estimate the SDG 17, 97% of the people in Kpavogur have access to internet. An approach that we have been proposing to the local administration to address the two, particularly the two challenges that Kpavogur is facing is this functional integrated approach. The idea is that some of these challenges, in particular transport and waste management, they go beyond the administrative border of the municipality and cannot be solved only by the city administration itself. So this requires collaboration with the neighboring municipality, in particular with the broader metropolitan area of Reykjavik. And there are already some effort in this direction, in particular some project that the local administration is putting in place with the Reykjavik metropolitan area to strengthen the public transport system. And also in terms of waste management, there is an association of municipalities that is managing the waste in the metropolitan area of Reykjavik. So these are already some good achievement to try to address this integrated and, let's say, functional challenge for the municipalities. The last two slides on the multi-level governance, as the presence of two representatives of the national government is stressing today. There is a strong recognition of the role of local government for achieving the 2030 agenda in Iceland. Some key players are the Interministerial Working Group on SDGs, the Ministry of Regional Policy, and the Association of Icelandic Municipality. Something that is one of the findings from our analysis, that there is a need to formalize all this effort and in terms of vertical coordination that the country is putting in place to better achieve and to better include, for example, local government in the voluntary national review moving forward. Finally, the SDGs is being used as a tool to better work with the private sector and with the civil society. The marketing office in particular is doing great work to engage the private sector and the private companies on sustainability. And the fact that when we launched locally the report in September, there was the company signed a memorandum of understanding to work on the SDGs with Kpavogur is already a good achievement so far. And then we have seen that also the civil society, in particular the school and the youth, are very active on the SDGs. I remember just very quickly, and in one of the meetings, we had the Boy Scout that came to the workshop and they presented all their effort that they were putting in place to achieve, to help creating awareness about the SDGs. And here, based on this analysis, are the 7 key recommendations that we are proposing to the local government. Some, I think it's really impressive that some of these recommendations has been already addressed and undertook by the local administration. One, for example, recommendation recommendation 7 on strengthening the partnership, using the marketing office to strengthen partnership with the private sector. Again, we already have, the local administration already signed this memorandum of understanding. Or I was really happy to hear from Asta that the Prime Minister Office is taking action to formalize this task force that we have been proposing to the national government, to the local administration to improve vertical coordination. The other recommendations are, again, to provide, to implement this functional approach to address some of the challenges that the administration still has, to use the SDGs as a tool for public sector motivation and to attract new staff to services like preschool education or social welfare. The other recommendation is to use the SDGs as a budgeting tool to prioritize the resources based on the action that the local strategy has identified as priority, using again the SDGs. Then we are suggesting to use the Nightingale Management and Information System, not just to monitor progress towards the SDGs, but also as a tool for policy dialogue with the local administration, but also with the local stakeholder to identify challenges and opportunities for sustainable development and possible solution. And finally, the last recommendation is really to combine this very interesting technical and top-down approach. Basically, the fact that the priority have been identified through a technical process based on the priority target of the national government with a bottom-up stakeholder engagement process. And also here, Kpavogur already took some action, created 2 online portal to communicate with the local administration on the work on SDGs. So the idea is really to step up this effort in the coming months and years to strengthen the achievement of the SDGs in Kópavogur. So I conclude here, and I really look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Stefano. And I know it's not easy to summarize an 80-page report into a 10-minute presentation, but you did great. And we are on time, which is a good piece of news. So now it's time to hear from you all. And again, I invite you to submit your questions via the Q&A icon at the bottom of your Zoom ribbon, and we'll take them as they come in. And maybe we'll start with those that are already there. And if I turn to you for the first question, we have one of the participants asking us whether you could flag at the local level, maybe representatives from the ministry may have a view at the national level, what would be the 2 major obstructions, or let's say challenges, to achieving the SDGs in your country or your city, and how you have overcome them. Maybe Mayor, we start with you. So we will unmute you maybe. Yes, so we can hear you. Good.
Yeah. I have some technical problems. Can you repeat the question, please?
So the question is if you can flag, let's say, 1 or 2 big challenges that you have faced as mayor of Kpavogur in driving this SDG agenda, and how you have overcome that challenge.
I mean, first of all, it's the first one is to choose the right SDGs for the municipality, and indeed, yes, to find out which one we should choose to make as a part of our strategy planning. And then, of course, we then found out that we should add some in the process. We should add some of them. So that's one of the what can I say? The main challenging that we faced, and we also, like you know, we are in a cooperation with the marketing office, and it is very challenging to cooperate with them, you know, the municipality and the companies, and to implement the SDGs here for the municipality and in accordance, and ask the companies to work with us to work on the SDGs with us, and we are doing it a little bit in a different way. It's much more complicated, but like I said in the presentation, it's maybe a little bit more complicated for us than for the companies, but that is the first step, and then we will integrate it more, and we will be more focused in the future for it.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And I think those two responses actually echo what we've been hearing from a number of mayors working on this localization agenda over the past year. Many stating that mayors don't wake up in the morning with the objective to implement the SDGs, but they wake up in the morning with the objective to fix very concrete issues for their citizens that are behind the SDGs. And the point you made about where to get started and how to prioritize is often the hot potato. Housing affordability, air pollution, traffic congestion. I mean, those are all issues that are captured by the goal. And the point you're making about the private sector is also something we've heard in the other pilots, how we can convince the stakeholders that governance is not just about governments and that everybody needs to play its role. So thank you very much for these insights.
Yes, I mean, this is you have to look at the whole picture, and you
Absolutely.
don't let yourself, you do not wake up in the morning and take one SDG and you are going to work on that day. But this is something that we are focusing on as the whole, focusing on the whole picture, and this is helping us to, combine everything together and, have this seen, have this, and indeed to use those opportunities that are included in the SDGs for the future.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. There's a follow-up question for you. Maybe if you wish to just start elaborating, if you have a plan on that front. Someone is asking, Eve, actually, how you're implementing the SDGs as a budgeting tool, or what are maybe your thoughts for this local sustainability strategy and this prioritization to trickle down into budget allocation. We know this is not easy to manage the trade-offs, and what are your thoughts about that, or how do you see some of the next steps?
I mean, you don't, for example, when you have a situation like now, where the budgeting is indeed going down because of the COVID, there are a lot of things that you can do, although you put a special budget on it, because you can change how you are spending the budget for each office right now. So you can change from take some of the budget and focus on what the SDGs are telling us, and maybe reduce other things to focus on the SDGs. But then, of course, is when we start to improve again, and we have and the budget will go up again, then you can take the budget and focus directly on SDGs after the committees, and the committee of Kópavogur has worked on how to prioritize for that new budget. So it can be used for the budget that we have already and focus on certain projects. And then, of course, when the income starts to go up again, we can add on. And when we add on the budget, we can focus on where we should spend the money.
Good. Thank you very much, Mayor. Very clear. And also the COVID-19 related implications. We've been trying to see what the implications are in 100 cities in terms of responding to the crisis. And maybe we can share, Lucy, online the links to the report for those who want to know more. And indeed, some of the shifting priorities are important to keep in mind out there. Thank you, Mayor. Let me turn now to Asta. Asta, there's a question question on how sex disaggregated data are being implemented and used by the Icelandic government, if you wish to elaborate on that. And then a second one on how you establish the SDGs priorities in this interministerial group. Stefano said, explained the link from your prioritization and what Kpavogur did in particular at the local level as the first municipality stepping into that bridge. But if you can maybe one step back, explain how that prioritization happened at national level. Asta, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Just to maybe touch upon the first question on the sex aggregated data. I mean, to be completely honest, data gathering has been a real challenge for the implementation of the SDGs in Iceland. We really just, I would say, at this point in time, we're doing quite well. It took us a couple of years to get started on that, and we're not where we really want to be in the disaggregation of the data. We're still gathering more data, as I mentioned earlier, for the municipalities, and also on gender and then and so forth. So I unfortunately cannot say that we can in an active way use it by now, but we hope that in a short period of time, it will be in a better place when it comes to that. And I'm sure that many others are struggling with similar difficulties. But when it comes to the priorities that we set, we originally, well, back in 2018, we wrote a status report where we basically took sort of the pulse of the goals in Iceland, and quite quickly realized that we would have to sort of, set targets that were really in the forefront for the next few years. And how we did that we actually approached the Institute on Sustainability Studies at the University of Iceland to assess the Iceland's our data availability and the quality of our data for each UN indicator for the SDGs. The aim of this work at that time was firstly to evaluate the quality of the data that we had gathered at that point in time, and also to submit some proposals on methodology on how to prioritize the SDG targets in Iceland. What we ended up doing based on those sort of recommendations from the University of Iceland were to evaluate the targets based on 4 criteria, whether they were consistent with current policy, connection to Icelandic reality, access to data, and what we thought were at that time the distance to the target. And that's how we came up with the 65 priority targets that we now work with.
Thank you very much, Asta. And there's a follow-up question on how Iceland is reporting to the UN. If you wish to elaborate very briefly, because then I would like to turn to Hannah for the last question on trade-offs, on the voluntary national reviews and just the reporting mechanism for the country overall vis-a-vis the UN on progress.
Yes, well, we obviously, we've conducted one VNR so far. We did that last year in 2019. But when it comes to, I'm not sure if we're referring to data here, we actually have an online platform that we report all of our data through, which is what we sort of, report to the UN. So yeah, twofold, both data-wise, we have an open platform online, and then the VNRs.
Excellent. And if someone from the Iceland team wishes to share on the chat the link to that data platform, I think it will be inspiring for others. Let me now turn to Hannah. Hannah, there is this question which we often hear about trade-offs and the idea that sometimes you make progress in one of the goals and it can be to the detriment of another goal. And that's why you need this holistic approach. And we know that regional policy is actually the policy that helps differentiate, you know, macroeconomic structural policies in a place-based fashion and to manage those different trade-offs. How is your ministry contributing to that conversation, you know, beyond the silos, to help cities and regions really advance these different areas that sometimes work against each other?
Thank you. That's a big question. And this is actually a work that we will now start on the basis of the Prime Minister's working group that will consist of the ministries and local governments. As I mentioned earlier on the regional plans, they have already started to link their goals and objectives to the different SDGs, and they are based upon the national regional policy. So, but this work is all in the beginning stages. And as Asta mentioned earlier, we need to improve national data collection and to be able to set good indicators for the municipalities to follow and measure their progress. And the parliamentary resolution that is now in our parliament, that will address major sustainability issues. And that linked and when that parliamentary resolution was written, it evolved mostly around financial sustainability. But to reach financial sustainability, we need to reach sustainability in the actions that lead to, expenditure, etc. So this is all interlinked, and we are now also reviewing our national regional policy, and we will put that forward in the parliament in the spring. So we will have to, start working fast, and we can tell you a bit better about this later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hannah, and thank you all very much for your time. Congratulations to the team, Stefano, but also Lauren, Saline, and many others who have contributed to the drafting. Also on the Icelandic side, Odur and her team, it was really an excellent cooperation over the past year and a half. It's pretty clear from the different interventions that this is not a report that will end on a shelf, that the mayor and his team have already taken a lot of actions, from the memorandum of understanding with the private sector all the way through the Prime Minister's task force for vertical coordination. We're very delighted that this is somehow guiding your decisions and your actions across levels of government to raise the profile of the SDGs as a means to an end, which is improving people's life. Let me add that this webinar was recorded, that we will of course put the link to the PowerPoint presentation online and share also the recording with a broader range of stakeholders for those that couldn't make it to the webinar. I think with this we have covered all the questions that were asked, at least in the Q&A. I'm having a final look at the chat where many of the references from different colleagues are being shared, and I hope they can provide valuable food for thought. Let me also, on behalf of Lamia Kamal-Shawi, who had to step out 1 minute ago to join another meeting, thank you, Mayor, and Hannah and Asta. We were delighted to have this multi-level responsibility shown in the webinar, because this was really the DNA of the dialogue process, and also inform our stakeholders that a number of other city and region pilots will be disclosed by the OECD and officially launched over the coming few weeks. The city of Bonn is the next one that is lined up on the 26th of October. Please register for the webinar if you have not done so. And we will also launch the cases of Viken in Norway, Southern Denmark, and Flanders during the third roundtable on cities and regions for the SDGs that will be held on the 16th and 17th of November. All the information is available on the OECD website and social media. Mayor, I will give you the last word if you wish to say thanks, and then we will conclude the webinar.
Yes, just thank you. Thanks to all of you. And to those that were talking for Iceland, I thank you for kind words towards Kópavogur. It was very nice and encouraging to hear from you. And I will just say I look forward to see how they have been working on this in Viken and Bonn and so on. So I will take a part in the seminar, and yes, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And the weather in Iceland is like it's a bright sunny day.
It doesn't look like this in Paris, but probably in other parts of the world. Thank you very much, and
Thank
to
you.
all the 90+ participants that were online, and have a good rest of the day, everybody. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.